And for our first film to be truly discussed on the Criterion Creeps podcast, we have Spine Number One, Grand Illusion, directed by Jean Renoir, 1938. The first thing I should mention about this film is it's kind of it's in a weird spot because it's not in print anymore. It's out of print. And I remember this only because we were doing the show and I was looking it up. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the reason why. So back in the day, Criterion had licensed a bunch of Studio Canal owned films, and that deal they had ended in early 2010. So back then there was like a whole bunch of like good movies, lots of French stuff that just like got pulled because Criterion didn't have the license to sell them anymore. So those films all got to go out of print and now all go for like $100+ each kind of thing. And this is like a real shitty thing because there's like for instance, The Third Man, that was released initially when when Criterion was doing their Blu-rays way back when, they put them in like these kind of like cardboard boxes, which were very different than what they would go on to do later because people did not like the cardboard packaging because they were going eco-friendly, but people were just like, no, I don't give a fuck about the environment. I want nice plastic cases. Like, these are really flimsy and get damaged. So those only lasted a very short period of time, and so they came out with the I don't want to say Amaray case, but the clear case that we all kind of know now. But it was like within like a year that Third Man Blu-ray went out of print because of that Studio Canal license deal ending, and so that thing goes for like $200-300. Like, it's expensive as hell. I have my old DVD of it, of Criterion's, but yeah, like the nice Blu-ray of it's not available anymore. And the thing that really stinks is Studio Canal re-released The Third Man on Blu-ray in North America, and I guess probably Europe as well. And its Blu-ray is nowhere near as good picture-wise as the Criterion one, which is really weird because you think that they would own by default that print or that restoration, but I guess Criterion maybe didn't play ball on that front. I don't know. I'm not accusing them of like not making their sources available because I wouldn't blame them necessarily if Studio Canal didn't sign their license deal for whatever reason. But oh well, I guess they've started though to re-release some stuff or starting to deal Studio Canal again. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, so Grand Illusion is available on Blu-ray. Studio Canal has put it out, and the Blu-ray does look a lot better than the old Criterion, which was, obviously number one, and it looks like an early generation DVD of a 1938 movie. So that is kind of where that is. So it's like kind of weird. Like, you have this like whatever 850 movies now in the Criterion Collection, and number one is not available from the Criterion Collection. But that doesn't stop us because we're resourceful creeps here on this podcast. So I guess I'll just talk a little bit about what this movie is. Kind of paraphrasing. Recapping, two French aviators in the First World War are shot down and put into a series of POW camps. There's Captain de Belledoux, played by Pierre Fresnay, and Lieutenant Marechal, played by Jean Gabin, versus Erich von Stroheim's von Raufenstein, who's kind of actually one of the kindliest German prison wardens you'll ever meet.
He looks badass though.
He looks so fucking badass.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of I don't even know if you call it trials and tribulations of prisoners of war, because it seems like they have it not too bad. And so the film kind of follows initially. So they get shot down by von Raufenstein in the field, in the combat. So there's no hard feelings there. The Captain de Belledoux and Raufenstein, they meet briefly before Belledoux is taken into custody, and they have like a mutual respect for one another. They both are of the aristocratic grouping. They're of a higher class than many of the other soldiers, so there's a mutual respect there. And so Marechal, just by chance, gets on well with Belledoux, and so Marechal kind of gets well treated. This is more in the second act, I guess, of the movie. But they wound up hanging out, befriending their comrades who are also prisoners. Of note is one of the other officers, Rosenthal, played by Marcel Dalio. And so the first third of the movie is set in the initial POW camp. and it's kind of just building toward their initial first escape. Before they can do it, they find out that they are going to be moved, and we get a montage that I found actually kind of confusing the first time I watched it, where. Okay, this is maybe getting into the review part of it. So anyway, they get moved, and they get moved to more and more prison camps, and they escalate to like a giant fortress, kind of near Switzerland, actually, or closer to Switzerland, but out somewhere northeast, I'll guess. And that's where they meet Rauffenstein, who's the kind of a head there. And since his victorious shooting down of Beaulieu and Marshall, he's been in a plane crash of some sort, and so he's got like the full body like stirrups and neck brace because his back's been broken and dueling scar and whatnot. He's great. And so the whole film's kind of like the one big escape that Beaulieu helps Marshall and Rosenthal go on. And then the third act is kind of life on the outside. It's kind of like really great little pastoral segment where we meet a woman who lives on a farm, who's basically widowed from her husband and like brothers and fathers and everyone who've gone to war or have died in the war. And sort of that's kind of the film as it is. So I guess I'll talk about Jean Renoir first. I've only seen a couple of his movies before this. Beaulieu, Saved from Drowning, and Rules of the Game, both also part of the Criterion Collection, which I imagine most people have only really watched Renoir movies from the Criterion Collection. And I found both those movies all right. Rules of the Game, I think, like everything I was reading about Grand Illusion, seemed to be like people just prefer Rules of the Game. And I just thought it was okay. It's not my kind of story. It's been a while. We'll obviously at some point rewatch Rules of the Game, and maybe my opinion of it will change. But it's just a movie that the story didn't really appeal to me. None of the filmmaking necessarily stood out to me. It seemed like very much a movie of its time. And Beaulieu, Saved from Drowning, that seemed to be a movie that was really about one performance. And again, kind of a story that I'm like, I don't really care about class necessarily in the way that these films did. I don't know if that's obviously class is still an issue to this day in our world now, but not in the way that these films were handling them at the time. They were almost terribly polite about it. Have you seen any Renoir films before Grand Illusion?
This was the first, actually.
The inaugural. Yes.
The Renoir films.
Yeah. Renoir.
No, this was the first one, actually. I've heard about him through several different means. Definitely this movie and Rules of the Game and stuff like that. But no, this was my first foray into there, and I have a pretty good idea of what he's all about. I actually saw that he was a pilot as well, and he got shot down, and he got a shot in the leg, and he lived a very similar tale to this Grand Illusion.
Yeah, so I think from what that's what I thought initially, but then I was like, I think when I was listening to the commentary track or reading one of the essays, I guess it's like he was a pilot, but I don't think he himself was shot down. It's him. He heard someone he flew with or served with told him these stories, and he basically kind of took those and extrapolated into them, I think.
So he stole them, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so he's a
dirty, rotten liar, which actually brings me to my first criticism of this movie. This is a liar movie. There's absolutely no magic in this Grand Illusion. So I don't know what he was getting on about, but it's false.
Okay.
It's false. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess as far as my thoughts of this movie looks great. I mean that in the sense that just on a technical level, this movie looks like 20 years ahead of its time. Like that moving camera drifting into those rooms. Like you really feel like it's like obviously they're shooting a lot of this on sets, right? There's like the exterior shots are obviously shot on location, which is pretty great. But then there's interior shots. They feel like they're part of like the building and the architecture that they're setting up in those exterior shots. But and they're moving inside of that in a way that it stands out, but in a good way. It really just feels like super sophisticated for that era. I mean, earlier this year, I was kind of on watching Oscar winner movies, as well as there's like the Danny Perry alternate Oscars list of movies that he thinks should have won Best Picture, and the two movies from 1937. Have I been saying 1938?
You've been saying 1938,
okay.
and I was just waiting to correct you.
37. I don't know where I got that in my head, but so I'm comparing it to the movie that to Life of Emile Zola, and comparing it to Stage Door. Both are okay. Stage Door's got like a super amazing screenplay, and Life of Emile Zola, which is just, I remember being just kind of long and just okay. Grand Illusion blows them out of the water, just as far as like production and stuff like that. And I mean, I was talking to my friend Steven, who likes grandpa movies, and he like, I was mentioning Grand Illusion, and I was talking about this with him, and he kind of mentioned like how like the French film industry in 1938 was so far ahead of everybody else in that period of time that like it's kind of forgotten like how far ahead they were, because obviously that thing, World War II, kind of happens, like, and the occupation kind of sets back their film industry a bit. So yeah, those tracking shots, huh?
Yeah, actually, that was one thing that I noted too. There's some really amazing shots there. Like, I think there's one, it's either in a bar or like the canteen in the first POW camp.
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of standing there, and it's just kind of zooming out. And as it zooms out, it passes it passes a person, and then it passes another person, and you just kind of see their coats lining up the whole time you're zooming out, and it looks great. There's another shot later. Some of the castle shots are really good when you get the big long stairwells, and when the breakout is happening at that time, and the super badass captain of the castle, he's kind of walking up the stairs. That was a really great shot as well. But I gotta say, so that guy, I wrote this down, and I could be wrong, but like I just imagine that he's the basis for like stereotypical badass old dude for a lot of things. And like when I first saw him with the scars and the neck brace and stuff, all I could think of was
Baron.
I think his name is that
Baron. I think it's Baron von Strucker, or it's
von,
like
Baron von Strucker.
I think that's absolutely 100% where like Jack Kirby, whoever actually drew him for the first time, would have been like, oh yeah, it's Erich von Stroheim, because he's like, he's so Teutonic, even though he wasn't German at all. But I mean, von Stroheim.
Yeah, exactly. It was that guy, but then it was also I think his name's Herr Starr, like in the Preacher comic.
Yeah.
So I've only read the first two trades of that, but I know that guy, and I know that big scar eye face and stuff, and I know old Garth, he's a fan of these old war movies, so I was like, I wonder where that came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy looks great, and he's walking through stuff, and all his dialogue is awesome. But yeah, the tracking shots are great, and it just looks great.
It looks very good.
Looks good.
The score by Joseph Cosma was really good. The opening credits of that movie are pretty great, with sort of like the text falling forward. I thought that was pretty nice. See here. When I was watching it, I became really aware that like I had really not watched very many movies about World War I until like, Lawrence of Arabia I'd seen obviously years ago, or like Paths of Glory, but then like just this year when I was doing again that Academy Awards Best Picture thing was like All Quiet on the Western Front and Wings, which I only just watched, but those movies were really interesting because like they were made like 10 years after the war, and then like so this movie Grand Illusion, I mean it was made like 20 years. 20 years after the fact, and I mean right before World War II. So I mean a lot of it's like there's that tension, I guess, about the war right around the corner and things aren't going to get any better.
I think you see that, but I think like, and this kind of delves into the movie like as a whole more. Like my take on this is this whole movie, like it's more about like in that World War I, that pre-World War II kind of mentality people have, especially like in wars and armies and stuff like that. Like it's very dignified, it's very like structured, and that's like the whole von Stroker or Wolfenstein. Ralphenstein. His whole jam about like royal families, or like good military families and stuff like that and being proper. I think it's more of a comment on like that pre World War II world where kind of there were these rules that people had. There was this kind of respect for people. So I don't know, like I felt like it was very romantic in that sense.
Yeah.
Like maybe it wasn't at the time, maybe at like as you said, the POWs have it pretty good. Like they can receive parcels. That one guy, he's getting American cigarettes somehow. So like they're all living pretty fine. Like they have a bunk, they can like do whatever they want. So it's very different from like what. Not even like 10 years later what would happen, like what real people would do and like what we know now people are capable of. So I feel like it's kind of light in that sense, but again, maybe at the time like it wasn't, I guess, because that stuff hadn't happened yet.
Right. Well, I think on the commentary track, I think Peter Cowie, my boy, he refers to the film, like the tone of the film, that it's meticulous, though the grime is perhaps underestimated. Because it seems like, it doesn't seem like the space is exactly lived in. Like, it doesn't, like, I don't know. I think of, like, something like Hunger, which is that's squalid and horrifying. Like, I should be afraid and like not want to be in prison at all. Whereas I find like the situation, any of the prisons that we see and the two real situations we see in the movie, they don't seem that bad. It seems like if you actually do exactly what you're told to do, it wouldn't be such a bad thing to stick it out. But
it wouldn't be bad. It's like the Adam Sandler Longest Yard. It's like you just play ball, man, and you'll be fine. Just don't cross any lines and don't piss anybody off.
Don't get raped by Steve Austin or a great
colleague. Steve Austin. Yeah. So, but I mean, in that sense, like it was pretty playful, that movie too. Like there was some fights, but I mean, Nelly got those shoes and that cake, and he was tearing up the field. So I don't know. Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, they're treated pretty good, and I don't know if it's like looking at it now, it seems like romanticism or. But I feel like that's kind of hard, like a hard thing to put on it because, as I said, at the time, it probably wasn't viewed like that.
Sure. Well, because, I kind of made a little list of POW movies I've seen. So, I mean, like, there's, like, Bridge on the River Kwai, Robert Bresson's A Man Escaped. There's, like, Stalag 17, which is Billy Wilder. There's another, so Man Escaped was a Criterion that's going to be one day watched. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence.
That's with my man, David Robert Jones.
Bose, and so I mean, there's like Deer Hunter, Rescue Dawn. There's like Peter Weir's The Way Back. There's like it's a little like subgenre, right? And I feel like some of those, like I'd say that probably the one that like really sticks out to me, like where it really captures like a desperation of needing to escape is A Man Escaped, which just like you're really like this place, like you're going to get shot if you don't get out of here. Obviously, that's like a different story altogether.
Yeah, I think the setting helps too, though, because like as you said, Rescue Dawn. Like I think that movie has desperation pretty good, but it's like a different kind of desperation. It's not like they're just starving and they're in a jungle and Christian Bale's like eating bugs and shit and he's like, we got to get out of here, and Steve Zahn gives the performance of his lifetime hugging that shoe. But like that, I think that movie does it too, but it's a different setting, right? Like I don't know, because their camp, where was their camp? Like it was in the jungle and it was just like a little hut with like 8 dudes in there just chained to the floor. Is that not? Do I have that movie completely wrong, or is that how it went?
Probably. What movie is this again?
Rescue Dawn.
Yeah, Rescue Dawn. So
that's Chris Bale.
That's like the subgenre of POW movies of Vietnam, and that's like the worst shit ever. That's like you want to be treated like a dog and just like fucking the worst crap imaginable to you. That's that Rescue Dawn kind of is about that, and it's like you definitely want to get away from that. But so okay.
Paths of Glory shows that good too. Like that's a very good like anti-war like got to get away kind of thing because they can't. I don't know. You know what I mean. I know. You know what I mean about Paths of Glory, buddy.
Okay, so one thing I will talk about, I was mentioning kind of my recap was, so like 50 minutes in, after the POW3 are transferred, it seems like the movie almost restarts, and we learn the three principles. Like so when they meet Ruffenstein again, they're like they start listing off all these like accolades that they have of escaping, and they're really proud of it. And I was like, wait, what? Like, did I miss something? And then like it wasn't until I was reading Roger Ebert's review where he was like talking like, and I realized, I misread that whole montage of them going from prison to prison. I didn't realize that those characters were being transferred to those prisons and then spending time there, and then getting transferred to another prison, like almost like they're getting downgraded.
I didn't get that at all. I didn't get that. I thought that whole thing was like them traveling to the castle prison.
Right. They're just being transferred on a train that goes by these camps. Not that they've been like they're spending time and trying to break out there. Because that's what happens is like when Ruffenstein starts reading through their or their rap sheets of like breakouts, I'm like, like I didn't get that from the film that that's what was happening there. So that's kind of like a weird, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was just to pass the time though too, because like they pass time in different ways. Like when the guy with the great hair, who with the broken arm at the start, like when he has his little coup where they sing the French national anthem, he gets stuck in the shoe for a while.
Oh, man.
And like in movie time, it's like 30 seconds, but then he has that great scene where he's like, it stinks like shit in here. He's like, I want to like talk to another person, so like it tells you that he's been in there for a real long time. So like later when Wolfenstein, I know these aren't the names, I don't care. When Wolfenstein's talking to them, and he's like, these are the things you did, I just assumed that those were things that happened at that same camp, right? Because they had showed that like time passes without you necessarily seeing it before. So I guess I was way off, but whatever.
I think what we're saying is Renoir fucked up. It's on him.
He fucked up.
And he's dead. So like,
so he got what he had coming.
Like everyone involved in the production of the film, he's dead.
So frankly, they deserved it.
So then, like 40 minutes we spend then at the castle fortress prison, and then spoilers, they get out, but not without sacrifice. My God! And then it turns into a different movie with them, like it's this pastoral film, like at the farmhouse. And I think that was like probably the best part of the movie in some ways, because it's super tense, because it really starts making you like, I hope these guys get away. Like, or you keep thinking, oh man, the Germans are going to come. They're going to show up at the worst time, and they're just going to ruin everything. That little girl who's like eating Jesus. She's going to get it, and like it's going to be bad, man. It's going to be all bad. But that was like great, and then you get the whole like end of the movie, and so overall I like this movie. I think it's pretty good. One thing I was going to get back to is, so this is the number one film in the Criterion Collection by default. It's on Roger Ebert's great movies list, and apparently Orson Welles said it is one of two films he would have brought onto the Ark with him.
The second being Batman v Superman, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
I disagree. But do you know what the actual second movie he would be taking with him is?
Do I actually know what that is? No.
Or does anybody know? Or is it like his kind of thing where he's like, well, it'd be my movie, fuckhead. Well, like it's Citizen Kane, obviously.
That would be the smart thing to say, but I'm sure he probably had something else in his mind.
To be quite honest, and just coincidentally enough, I would take Spine number 2, Seven Samurai is one of the two movies over this one in a heartbeat.
Whoa, there. Slow down there. This is episode number 1. Sir.
Yeah, I know. I'm just jumping ahead, but no, I wouldn't do that. If you asked me next episode what my 2 Ark movies would be, they would be vastly different. But I mean,
that's what I mean.
Renoir lived in a world where there weren't montages of dudes flexing. So, like, what are you gonna do?
Doomsday.
Yeah, Doomsday
scenes.
with
Jesse Eisenberg hadn't been born yet, and
scarred over genitalia and just weird like dorsal fins and stuff like that. Yeah, like I don't know. That's just I don't know. I wouldn't pick that movie, but maybe next week I'll have my actual picks. And I guess, well, I don't know. How long did Orson Welles live? To like 1950?
Well, he was around for the Transformers the movie, which I believe
Michael
just
Bay's
had its like
Transformers?
I think it just had its like 30th anniversary.
Oh, you mean the cartoon? You don't mean Michael Bay's
Yeah, no,
Transformers.
the fake cartoon one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, no, so yeah, Orson Welles he died after 1950, that's for sure.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty confident the reason he did die was because this was one of his picks.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds
I
legit to me.
I think he was wrong, and I
Yeah.
think he paid the price for it.
Okay.
So that's my hot take.
Fine.
It's my hot take, buddy.
Yeah. So, one thing I'd like to throw out there is, I guess I also listened to the commentary track for the on this release of Grand Illusion, which was
Right.
with the aforementioned my boy Peter Cowie,
Uh-huh.
an Englishman. It is not a very good commentary track.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's super academic.
Oh, boring.
It's very dull. Like there's this bits where okay, it's academic's the wrong word to use because I think there's good academic ways of talking about film, but this is one where it is like just literally talking about what's happening on the screen and like describing how this narratively plays into a scene further down. And it's like, yeah, no, I know, I can see that. Like I don't know, maybe not everyone's like a good close viewer of film, and maybe they'd find it enlightening. I didn't.
But yeah, but I have to give John Q. Public a little credit. It's like, okay, you might not see it coming, but you will when you see it. So it's like you don't need to be like tapped on the shoulder and like winked at, like, hey, you see this? This is gonna be something else later. Get it? Is that what you mean?
Or
Like
just
that's
like
what it sounds like.
it's just like almost like he walks through the room through the door. And like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, now you're describing what's happening. Like it's like kind of like I'm not blind. I don't
Yeah.
need like a visual or a audio aid to describe what's happening visually. And that's sometimes like at times it's like that, and other times it's just like factoids. But
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to be really fully engaged with the cinema. Like compared to next week's film, Seven Samurai, which has a heck of a good commentary track. We're like we start talking about telephoto lenses or just talking about moving cameras and like staging and stuff like that. There's far more like it seems like more interest in talking about that, which I think is a great tool for what a Criterion or any commentary track should be, I guess.
I think you're getting ahead of yourself, pal. I mean, we're
I
on
know.
Spine 1 here. What are you doing? You're jumping ahead.
I know.
What are
I
you
know.
doing?
Shut
This is
up.
ridiculous.
I know this is bad. Bad. This is bad hosting.
Yeah, just bad.
One of my
Sad.
it's sad. One of my favorite bits was I think at one point Peter Cowie mentioned something about one of the themes of the film is language and how language is important to communication, and like how the film demonstrates that.
As my buddy John Madden would say, what you want to do in a football game is win more points than the other team. That is a real John Madden quote, and I feel that is very similar to what your good personal friend here has to say. I mean, does that really need to be said?
It just seems like I don't know if that film has any like real thoughts on that other than like this grander detail of just like unity of nations or like preventing future wars, which I guess like comes down to one of the big questions I had for you on this was what is the Grand Illusion?
I already told you. I don't know because this horseshit movie has zero magic. I don't know. I was thinking about that the whole time, and I think a really obvious and like probably not right answer would be that maybe there's civility in these settings, like in this war, that what you're doing has some sort of goal. I don't know if that's nihilistic or not, but it like the way it ends, it's like we escaped so we can go back to the army and then we can end the war. It's like did you not like just live like 5 years in POW camps? Not 5 years, but like you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a couple years.
It was a couple years at least, because that's like the whole thing they say too. Like when they first get there, they're like, we're digging a tunnel, and it's like, is the war gonna last that long?
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. The way I took it is that this illusion is that war has an actual end or a reason to be there. Like, it's just all there for nothing. And unless you meet a hot Dutch lady with a kid who eats little wooden Jesuses, then I guess there is a reason that you're there. But other than that, I couldn't tell you, man. I don't know if you have an answer for it or what.
I think like the only interpretation that I could come up with that I don't think goes along with what the film was going to say at all, but it's just like the grand illusion that war isn't avoidable.
Yeah,
that we're somehow better to then not fight. But I think that in the movie it seems like it's almost, well, I mean, particularly in the time that movie came out, whatever it was, it's not like the movie Grand Illusion didn't work.
Yeah,
it didn't stop World War II. World War II proceeded, and many wars have proceeded since then.
Yeah.
Even with the knowledge of the fact that war stinks. You shouldn't go to war, and that seems to be like, that's like a dark kind of non-end, or it's a weird interpretation because it doesn't, like, I don't think that's really how the film plays out, but it seems like that is the only way for me to interpret it.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like at the end when they're leaving, they're like, "Yeah, we'll leave and we'll join up again, and then we'll end this war." And it's just like, well, that's not really how this stuff works. Like,
no.
So I guess that's what it means, maybe, but
yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I could. Who really knows?
Who can know for sure?
Not Renoir. He's dead.
He's dead. He doesn't care anymore. I guarantee you, he doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
So as a little bookend, since I had some time, I also popped in The Great Escape, just to see as a compare and contrast.
Yeah.
It was fine. It has this
Steve McQueen didn't do it for you?
No, okay. Steve McQueen and I aren't buds, I don't think. It's fine. The cast is pretty amazing. It's pretty stacked. When you see like that credit roll and you see all the names, it's like, man, this movie looks amazing. And I've seen it years ago. Like, I think I watched it in shop class in grade 9, back when you'd have like, because it's a dad movie, so unsurprisingly my shop teacher was a dad and probably just figures that everyone should like Great Escape. It's Steve McQueen. It's fucking great. And I don't know, it's a widely shot movie. John Sturges directed it, and it's very slow. The first 2 hours are pretty like just both set up. They inevitably have an escape. And then the last hour, which is the best part, is just about them getting recaptured in various parts of Europe, either getting captured or killed. And I
guess that's the grand illusion.
Yep, and that you could ever escape, that the war will ever end. So I don't know. And Great Escape is a movie that I don't really feel like I ever really have to watch again. I would probably watch Grand Illusion again, so it wins that fight. Okay. Steve McQueen to me is kind of a charisma black hole. I kind of understand why people would find him interesting in like the 60s, but for the most part, he basically, if he wasn't in any of the movies that I've seen, he could be replaced with anybody. He's kind of the Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
He's the Michael Fassbender of his place and time.
Fassbender.
Yeah,
a guy who sells tickets now, but he's going out like Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah. Nobody's gonna care in a couple of years. Yeah. And that's just sad.
Steve McQueen, the Fassbender of his generation.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know who is special though?
The Catfish.
Charles Bronson. That's right.
The Catfish himself.
Yeah.
I knew he was in that jam, and you know what? Anytime that fucker's on screen in any movie, you can't help but smile, because he does something, you know?
Yeah, he sends shivers down my spine.
There you go. So going back to the Grand Illusion, I think you know how I feel about this, but I had a few notes, and I just want to share them with you.
Hit me with them, baby.
Because I wrote these notes while I was watching the film, and looking back at them now, I think they are just ripe with interpretation. So the first thing I wrote was black and white. So in case you didn't know, this film is in black and white. I feel like that's important to know because some people might not know that. The second thing I wrote down was monocles. There is an insane amount of fucking monocles in this movie. It is absolutely insane. So many dudes twisting in those monocles like deep into their skulls. It's insane. I've never seen such a thing ever.
It was the time and place
It was the time and place.
to be black and white and monocled.
And monocled. The third was vegetarians, because there is one vegetarian in the show, and he gets dumped on constantly. His whole gripe is about how his wife cheats on him with his brother because his brother eats red meat, and I thought that was both sad and really funny. And that was actually the other thing. I thought this movie had some pretty good humor in it. I don't know what it was. Like there were just certain like subtle ways people talk to each other I thought was funny. Like, and there was one scene where they needed a guy to go outside to check on things, and the guy with the great hair is like, "Why don't you go outside? You got an innocent face." And then the camera pans over, and it's this totally disheveled dude, all dirty face with like messy hair. And I thought that was funny. That's the kind of stuff I like. So.
But what about men dressed as ladies? The funniest thing ever?
I kind of had the reaction the entire room had when the guy puts on the dress. And he's like, "It's funny, right? It's funny," and everyone's just kind of staring at him, and nobody says anything. He's like, "Don't you guys think it's so funny?" So I was in that camp, but I also think in the movie I wasn't sure if they were just like, "Fuck, this really sucks," or if they were like, "Ooh, that dude looks like a lady."
Look at those gams.
Yeah, as Aerosmith would say, "Dude looks like a lady," and they were just into that. So
Yeah.
I didn't really know how to take that, but yeah, I didn't much care for that part.
Yeah. Probably my favorite scene of the whole movie was the bit where it's like in the first camp, and the prisoners, the soldiers, they're kind of looking out the window, and they're talking about the like, I think they're like, it's like the German anthem is being sung or whatever by a bunch of cadets. But then there's this thing talking about, it's like, oh, it's not the music that catches you into like this motion, it's the sound of the boot steps. And then it's just like you just get the shot of the soldiers looking out the window, and you just hear that stomping boot steps thing, which is just like very much like, oh yeah, Nazi Germany. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's just like super good, and that's like probably the best, my favorite scene in the whole movie. That anything that doesn't involve Eric von Stroheim, that was probably my favorite bit. And then that the whole last act is good. And then, I mean, in some ways, symbolizing the end of a discussion about Grand Illusion is the question of, did we do it? Did we make it into Switzerland?
I didn't make it into Switzerland.
No,
I'll tell you that much.
We had a trigger-happy German soldier peg us off on a snowy mountainside.
So yeah, arrow to the knee or something, buddy. Because I think we did make it in. I liked this Grand Illusion. I thought it was a pretty good joint. It's definitely not one of my ARC movies. Definitely not if I only get 2. But even if I got 10, I don't think I would bring this one.
No.
Not that it's bad or anything.
It's absolutely not a bad movie. It's good.
It's pretty good. But
yeah,
it doesn't hit me. Where the sun shines. So
yeah,
that's about it. I think we made it. Yeah,
outstanding.
But I do think I got pegged in the leg or something. So we did make it, but not unscathed.
Not unscathed. That's beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave it at that.
All right.
Our hot take on the Grandest Illusions.
It's especially a hot take because I think we're the first people to ever talk about this movie. It's pretty new.
Probably. Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know about it, and it's new. It's hot on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was going to that Suicide Squad. Nobody even bothered to go see Grand Illusion this weekend.
Yeah.
So.
Bunch of chumps.
I
did go on to Letterboxd, and I was just curious how many people are fans of the Grand Illusion. Grand Illusion on Letterboxd has all of 37 fans. 5,720 people have watched it, and it has an average rating of 4.2.
Pretty hot take.
Yeah. When I figured out like the proportion of people who are fans of it to how many people have watched it, it's got a 0.65% conversion rate. Which, I mean, if you want to compare it to something, Fight Club is 4.06%, which is even higher than next week's film, Seven Samurai.
That's a tragedy.
Yeah, I think the internet has done as many bad, wrong things as it has great things.
Yeah, well, that's one of them.
That's one of them right there.
Yeah, there's a reason Fight Club's not in the Criterion Collection.
Uh,
Or is it? I don't know. If it is, I don't care.
Hey, as of August 2016, it is still not in the Criterion Collection.
Well, there you go.
They do like that David Fincher, though.
That's true.
I think we all like David Fincher. But that's a discussion for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, though.
Okay.
That'll be at some point in the distant future. Anyways, I think we'll leave our Grand Illusion discussion here, and after the break, we'll see you there.